It is 10 a.m. in the East, 7 a.m. in Las Vegas, and 9 a.m. in Costa Rica, home of some of the most beautiful women in the world and home of Sportsbook Review. And here it is, the Sportsbook Review OffshoreInsiders.com tailgate party.
Knows that the secret to surviving.
I don't want to take advice from fools.
You always won every time you placed a bet.
Money, that's what I want.
And folks, we are going to have three free winning picks on this report. NFL, college basketball, and the NBA. All that and a whole lot more. As we've got some great stuff for you, and this information great for both the sports bettor and the fantasy football player. Seattle and Jacksonville. The Jaguars have the best against the spread margin in the NFL at plus 8.0, though their against the spread record is 7-5. Seattle has gone under 8-4, and the record is in a four-way tie for the top under team. So, and again, when we talk about that, and hello there, folks, already checking in. Thank you for those of you who give us a like, share, comment. And if you have any questions, if you want me to look up a system, if you got a theory, why don't you just tweet it to me? You can see right there below at Offshore Insider. There's no S at the end. And, I will look it up and I'll put it up on next week's show, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live on Sportsbook Review's Facebook page. But again, thank you to those of you who are checking in. The Jets and the Broncos. Denver with the worst against the spread margin in the NFL at minus 9.2. They're 2-9 against the spread. And I was in the process of explaining, again, against the spread margin. Some of you may have seen it called Sweat Barometer. It is how much a team does or does not cover the spread by, similar to the points per game margin, except it is relative to the Vegas and offshore point spread. The Jets running back Matt Forte is questionable. This game, the Broncos open as a favorite, but they are now getting 1.5 points. Although, again, as we like to tell you, definitely want to check the odds at SBR Odds to check those latest lines. But that was as of about 30 minutes ago when I was checking the lines. But always check SBR Odds for the latest odds. Don't get screwed by a line move. Titans and the Cardinals. Arizona with the second worst against the spread margin in the NFL, minus 6. They're also among the worst spread teams. As far as mere record is concerned, just 3-8 against the spread. Cardinals will be without running back Adrian Peterson for the second straight week. Some might say he's a little bit overrated. Cards are 5-15 versus an opponent with a winning record. All records are against the spread unless, in some cases, we do specify straight up. And yes, again, thanks to those of you who already checked in with some likes, Roderick Nickerson, Marcus Woods. And we know we have a good, I think, I don't really analyze it that closely. About 25 to 30% of you are watching this live. But if you're watching on rebroadcast, please comment on that and share it as well. And make sure you join us on Facebook Live on Sportsbook Review 10 a.m. But I know some of you are on the West Coast and some of you are still asleep as we do the live broadcast, but you can always catch it on demand. The Eagles and the Rams. The Rams have the best against the spread margin in the NFL at plus 8.7, and they're 8-4. But of course, the Eagles have been pretty darn good themselves, and they're off of a road game at Seattle. A tough contest on that Sunday Night Football, to say the least, as they are tied for the best against the spread record at 9-3, but third best against the spread margin of plus 7.8. And again, the reason that we do like to do that is because look, when a team is covering by a close margin, maybe they've had a couple close covers, and maybe their against the spread losses were blowouts. That's why we like against the spread margin a little bit better. And yeah, thank you for the comment there, Marcus. The software is pretty neat. I do have some software that's made specifically for Facebook Live, and we can do pre-recorded content. So thank you for the comments on the intro there. And if you're joining us in progress, make sure you watch it from the beginning. New fancy intro. I like to do some TV production on the side. But yeah, I do like this really neat software that enables us to add graphics, some great content. I know some other people do some fantastic content. Charles does the daily over-under stuff. one sportsbook review, but I like to, to add some nice graphics, and most importantly, it's about the comment, but doing some graphics and whatnot, and they're still improving on this software, so maybe we'll be able to add some features in the future, even, maybe even some pre-recorded interviews or stuff like that. The Rams, this is big. They altered their practice this week. Do the wildfires. Look, sports, we like to escape from the real world. Our prayers, anybody out there who is, in the Los Angeles area and affected by the wildfires, our prayers were with you. One of the more humbling things we saw, on Facebook this week, somebody passed along a quote, and it said, a lot of you are posting pictures of white stuff on the ground on Facebook and the social media. Look closely to see whether it's snow or ashes. And yeah, we did get some snow. You may be able to see it. It doesn't look, can't see it all that clearly. The snow's starting to melt, but we are based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Rare snowfall. Got to play in the snow with my kids. They're getting older, but at least my daughter and my youngest son wanted to play a little bit out in the snow. My oldest son, senior in high school, doesn't like to go outside all that much. But yeah, we got some rare snow this week in Atlanta. But again, our prayers and thoughts are out to those of you who are in the range of those wildfires. 49ers and the Texans. Now look, Houston is shockingly still the top over team based on margin. They've gone over by an average of 8 points per game. Yet they're only 6-6 to the over. Now keep in mind, since Tom Savage, of course, has taken over, Deshaun Watson, as we know, is out for the year. But they were big over with their rookie sensation. But they've gone under 4 or 5 with Savage. But they're not going under by large margins. Really, the big story here from a handicapping standpoint, Jimmy Garoppolo starts at quarterbacks for the 49ers. He's actually 3-0 straight up in his career, but that includes one with the 49ers. Look, from both a psychological and I think a talent standpoint, San Francisco, their offense, I've said a bazillion times, I still look first and foremost at guys that touch the ball, and especially in 2017, there is not a more important position than the quarterback position. And with Garoppolo in there, look, we still don't really know what Garoppolo has, but in his starts with both the New England Patriots and with San Francisco, he looks like he has the ability to be an upper half quarterback, maybe even better than that. So I do think riding the Garoppolo train, really when it comes to the total and the side, and those of you who are fantasy football players, probably a good idea. San Francisco's offense is better than their season-to-date numbers. And I've said it before, as a handicapper, and again, you can get my premium picks at offshoreinsiders.com. We are on, I think it is a 22-7 run with Wise Guy Plays. Ridiculous year of football, college, and pro. We got the record up there. We do have a Wise Guy Play 4 NFL winners. We got NBA and just NBA up as well, including a Wise Guy Play at offshoreinsiders.com. But I try to catch myself to, I become so obsessed, and I love the computer and computer systems, and they've won for me for years, going back to the 1980s when a very well-known statistician, Dr. Mike Orkin, had written this software, and it became publicly available, and I found out that you can definitely, beat the bookmakers with great software, and that's how Billy Waters, the group, used to beat the bookmakers. But at times, you got to look past that, and the San Francisco 49ers, I think, are a good example where I definitely think the offense they're putting on the field is better than their season-to-date statistics. But still, a lot of the systems do apply, and you see when the odds makers do adjust to that. So a lot of the systems actually take that into account. How is a team that's normally been an underdog, how do they do as a favorite? Stuff like that. I have systems like that programmed in there. Redskins and the Chargers. The Chargers, the second-best under team that is based on margin, again, ATS, or in this case, over-under margin, sweat barometer, going under by an average of 5 points per game and under 8-4. The record, the under 8-4, is a 4-way tie for the top under team. Redskins, often injured tight end Jordan Reed is out. Chargers, though, again, talk about reversal of fortune, and geez, a team with Phillip Rivers, the Chargers with Phillip Rivers as a quarterback, they're streaky. Imagine that. Chargers 6-2 straight up after an 0-4 straight up start. Washington has gone over 24, make that 25-8 recently. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Again, it helps us get exposure. It tells us you love this information, so we appreciate any likes and comments that we do get and shares. And again, I'm going to be having all kinds of bowl information. I'm going to be watching the games tonight, and I have an all-nighter planned. And unfortunately, that means at work, not with my wife, but an all-nighter planned where we're going to do even more bowl research. So make sure you follow me at Offshore Insider. We're going to have great free information, and we'll tell you about the premium information as well, where all the sharp players are. So follow me on Twitter if you don't already. Vikings and the Panthers. The Vikings are tied for a league best 9-3 against the spread margin, though they're more modest, fifth best against the spread margin at plus 5.4. I should say best against the spread record. I keep confusing the terms. Obviously, the record means what the record is. Margin is how much they are or not covering by, but they're among the best both as far as record and margin is concerned, but especially more so on record. Now, Latavius Murray, look, you got to give the Vikings credit. Of course, they lose their starting quarterback, although, as you know, I was never really much of a Sam Bradford fan anyway, but they also lost Dalvin Cook, their star rookie. And if anything, they become, look, with Dalvin Cook, he was more of, that feast or famine type guy, especially in my early years of handicapping when it came to totals. I used to adore teams like Minnesota, where they have a nice ball control running game. From a ball control standpoint, their running backs, they really have what's been a three-headed monster. They have a nice running back by committee in there in Minnesota, and they're better for the under because they keep the defense off of the field more so than they would with Dalvin Cook, who would be, as I said, a little bit more of that feast or famine type thing. But Minnesota's got a great ball control offense. Adam Thielen, one of the most underrated players in the NFL, period, as a wide receiver. So we know Case Keenum has been very efficient this year. Vikings are holding teams that average 106 yards per rushing to well below that normal average. They hold teams to well below the normal passing yards per attempt. Teams that normally get 6.8 passing yards per attempt only get 6. Now, the Panthers are a pretty darn good defensive team themselves. They're holding teams to 0.2 yards per carry and 0.5 yards per rush, below their normal average. Now, with home games versus the Bengals plus Green Bay, Chicago, and then they have Chicago, the Vikings can really put all their eggs into this game. This is going to be their last challenge until the playoffs. And, I told you before that, this is kind of the time of the year that my allergies are so. I always said, look, guys at Sportsbook Review, the marketing people, why don't you get Gatorade to sponsor us? But all right, we'll get back to it. But yeah, as I said, no question the Vikings, they can put all their emotional eggs into this basket. Now, will they have a letdown next week? Well, we'll talk about it next week, 10 a.m. Eastern, here on Facebook Live with Sportsbook Review. The Vikings are in a nice stretch of not turning the ball over that fits into an angle that's 167 and 115 in their favor. Panthers tight end Greg Olsen. Seen different reports. I've seen him listed as questionable to probable. The tea leaves say he will probably play, but keep an eye at SBR odds. This line will adjust a point or a point and a half at game time, depending on his status. He averages 80 catches a year over the last 3 years. Well, of course, the juice could be adjusted as well because it's right around 3. But he is obviously a big injury. Those of you who listen to when I do the Vikings podcast, the Purple for the Win, the host Andy Carlson, he always likes to ask me, what if this guy was abducted by aliens? How would it affect the line? But yeah, Greg Olsen is one of the bigger injuries today, as far as if he's deactivated. That could definitely affect the line by up to a point, up to 1 point, that is. Cam Newton, look, he's been incredibly inconsistent this year. We like to bet on inconsistency. 4 games, he's exceeded 100 passing yards, 5 games below 70. And the interesting thing is there's no real pattern. You might ask, well, Joe Duffy of OffshoreInsiders.com, has he played his best against the best and the worst against the worst, or has he played up or down on the competition? Probably indicative of how erratic he's been this year. One of his best games statistically this year was against the. He's had bad games. Yeah, Cam Newton, one of his best games this year was against the Saints. One of his worst games this year was against the Saints. So there's not really a clear pattern. Rapport with Christian McCaffrey, though, does seem much better. So if Olsen is in the lineup, he might be, again, one thing I do not do is bet the prop bets. I'm just so consumed with the against the spread and over-under full game stuff. But, check SBR odds, all those approved sports books. I would think there's a pretty good chance Newton would go over the projected yards passing today. The Colts and the Bills. The Bills quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, he's actually a game-time decision as far as to whether he's going to suit up, but rookie Nathan Perryman is expected to start at quarterback. Peterman, I should say. Nathan Perryman, a completely different person. Well, partially different person. No, he's a completely different person. Peterman, of course, had 5 interceptions in his debut. And then in relief last week, he was 6 of 15 for 3.3 passing yards per attempt. The guy sucks, but he is a rookie, so you don't want to make too many conclusions as far as whether or not a guy is going to be a terrible quarterback. I mean, he's capable of putting together a good effort this week, but all in all, I would take Tyrod Taylor. So I think that's a definite downgrade. Of course, they're hoping that the rookie long-term is going to be the better quarterback. And sometimes you got to take that one step back for a couple steps forward, but this is more so because of Tyrod Taylor's injury. Kelvin Benjamin, though, is expected to re-enter the lineup for Buffalo, key wide receiver. Road teams off of the losses, road underdogs, are 269 and 203. That would favor the Colts. It's been a surprisingly quiet year as far as weather's been concerned from a handicapping standpoint. Light snow is expected, 24 degrees, but there will be 18-mile-per-hour winds. Like we said, 15-mile-per-hour winds is right around the demarcation point where we consider something to be pretty significant. But yeah, there will be some significant winds here, not super-duper significant, but pretty significant as far as that's concerned. The Bears and the Bengals. The Bears have gone under 8-4 this year. The record for a four-way, the record is a four-way tie as the top under team, so they're second best under team in a four-way tie. Go against a team that is 2-1 straight up their last 3. Fairly big favorites despite not being very good, or a go against of 69 and 35. That favors the Bears, so bad teams as favorites are go against. The Bengals are off a short week to the Steelers, of course. We all know about that game, how ugly it was, how physical. And one could argue that this week is, from a handicapping standpoint, even shorter, because that was both an emotional and physically exhausting game. However, teams, this is a little bit of a surprise to some, but not really if you follow what I say. The NFL is a regression to the mean sport. They play at this level. They know how to bounce back. Teams that blew a big lead the previous week and are playing at home do bounce back at a 58 and 38 rate, and that would favor the Bengals. Now, teams at least 2 games under 500, yet laying 6.5 or more, are just 158 and 219. That says to fade the Bengals, go with the Bears. The Bengals, though, without rookie running back Joe Mixon, linebacker Vontaze Burfict, and cornerback Dre Kirkpatrick. Those of you bet live lines, check those SBR odds for your live lines and the recommended sports books. The Bengals are 30th in third quarter scoring, 31st in fourth quarter scoring. So they're a better first half team than a second half team. And I think we just gave you that one angle. All right, now, we have by the way, I said I was going to have three picks in 3 different sports. Road favorites in the NBA, that is. Road favorites in the NBA, off of the loss under some specific circumstances that do apply today. 607 and 481. That would favor the Boston Celtics. So the Boston Celtics are one of your free picks. We're going to have an NFL free pick coming up. We are going to have a NBA college basketball free pick, in fact, from a system that's been, somewhat streaky this year. And again, I see a lot of people are joining us. Do us a favor. Give us a like. That'll help us. Comment. I'll try to answer any questions. And if you want me to look up a system, I don't want to sit here. It'll be boring as hell. I could theoretically look it up live. But if you have a system, you want me to check, and we don't do like team-specific trends, but something like you want to see how a team does if they won their last 2 games by double digits, and then they hit the road as an underdog or something like that. If you have a theory, tweet me at Offshore Insider, and I will report on it next week. It's something I meant to say every week and have not done that. And by the way, got a theory in another sport. We can put it here. This is, the NFL tailgate party, but as evidenced by the fact we've given some basketball picks, of course, it can be in another sport. The Packers and the Browns, and by the way, let's see, yes, good morning. Jeff D'Angelo, yes, thank you, Jeff. Wow. Survivor picks. Jeff asked about the Survivor picks. Of course, it depends on which teams you have left in your Survivor. That's another one of those things I don't do anymore would be Survivor picks. I don't do fantasy sports anymore because of the different rooting interests. It may be, I always say you do not want to save a team, and at this point, kind of becomes irrelevant. If you're still alive in your Survivor leagues, although I know a lot of people start over. Don't save a team. Do not bet on road teams. And the reason is somewhat, I guess there's an asterisk next to don't save team. When I don't outsmart yourself. Don't say, like, I'm going to go with the Patriots this week, but I think I'd rather go with them next week. No, do not do that. There's a lot of reasons. That's a bad idea. However, don't bet on road teams. You're always going to get better value on home. And as we said, road favorites are one of the biggest square moves in the NFL. Not that if you bet home dogs religiously, but do not bet on road teams. As far as outside the box, well, you know what? Our free pick. We got a free pick coming up in a moment. And actually, I'm going to go with a road favorite in a free pick. But if you're in a Survivor League where you're still alive from the beginning of the year and you're running out of options, that is the time that you actually do have to. I mean, if road favorites are your only options left, but that's the only circumstances. You know what? I should say, I think the Giants are a pretty good chance at an upset. We're going to talk about that game in a moment. And, of course, they opened up as big underdogs and when Eli Manning was back. So if the Giants are still available, I would say they would be a very good out of the box pick for Jeff's Survivor pool. The Packers and the Browns, well, we talked about this. The NFL, as I say, regression to the mean sport. Coco Bear, what? Did we upset you? I see you got a sad face. Did I say something that upset you? Was my free pick opposite of your pick? But anyway, we always appreciate the comments, no matter what. Please don't make fun of me being fat. I'm very sensitive about that. Really, really. I may literally cry on the air, and you don't want that to happen. Actually, it's kind of funny. I do some volunteer work. 4 days a week, I work with at-risk kids. And one of the kids, I think he's a second grader, he read a book to me about a trip to the dentist. It's a popular book. And I joked with him. I said, I cry every time I go to the dentist. Actually, I wasn't joking. I do cry when I go to the dentist. And he says to me, how can you cry? You're an old man. How old are you? And I, gave my standard one-liner. I told him I was 23 years old. He goes, 23? You look like you're 75. No, you're 85. You're 95. So, I'm also sensitive about jokes about my age. I'm not quite that old, but the bright side of that story was one of the exercises we do with the kids at the Star House here in Roswell, Georgia, is we have them count by, 5s, 10s, 50, start at a certain number. Obviously, that young man was able to count very well, counting by 10s. I think who was that? The young fellow by the name of Jonathan, but helping these at-risk kids is great. But the NFL is normally a regression to the mean sport. And I will get to your questions, Jessica, in a moment. I'll take a look at it. Hey, I love the female viewers, by the way. Especially this early in the morning. It'd be nice to have some females check in addition to this lovely young lady, Jessica Mullen. And I do know, from I don't, study the customer list, but I do know I have a lot of female names come through as clients, so I'm very appreciative of that at offshoreinsiders.com. And I think she had a prediction. I'll read it in a moment, but let's get to this Packers-Browns game because I keep sidetracking myself. The NFL, as we say, is a regression to the mean sport. Essentially, more times than not, if you go with really bad teams or against really good teams or with cold teams and against hot teams, you're going to make money. The exception of the rule is a team that has lost at least 21 out of 22 over a 2-year period. And there again, that could actually happen over a 3-year period if you're talking about the beginning of the year. But a team that's lost 21 out of 22 over a multi-year period. They're actually a 24-8 go against. That is, of course, ATS. And in the case of the Browns, they've lost 27 out of 28. Now, what, Hugh Jackson, apparently he got the proverbial vote of confidence. He's not playing for his job, they said. A lot of times, teams rally around a coach whose job is he's playing for his job. So, if anything, you might say that would give the Browns a little bit less than a motivational thing. However, winless teams in Game 6 or later in winnable games, that means they're getting 3.5 points or less, are 28, 19, and 2 against the spread, and 20 and 11 if they're an underdog. So yeah, if an awful team playing in a winnable game is a good play. And there are 18-mile-per-hour winds here. Again, that's pretty significant. All right, the lovely Jessica, the Giants plus the points I like because it's cold out there, but I don't think they will win. Yeah, Jessica, actually, again, I've alluded to this. She's a very bright young lady, in addition to a lovely young lady. She looks like a lovely young lady. I can barely see the profile pic. But I've said it. That kind of brings up indirectly a point, and it's worth repeating because I hear so many people regurgitate, this statistic. I'm not going to take pot shots at other handicappers, but there's a guy who I won't say his name. But he is the boss. He runs a pretty big sports handicapping website. He does some videos, and he always likes to say, if you bet the team that wins outright, you win 85% of the time. And I've even heard Chad Millman, a respected guy, regurgitate that statistic. Look, if an underdog wins outright, they're going to cover 100% of the time. For a favorite to cover, they have to win outright. If you got two evenly matched teams, I've said this before, you're going to have the home team as a 3-point favorite because home field advantage is worth 3 points. The only time a team can win outright and not cover is if in a situation like that, two evenly matched teams, if the home team wins by 1 or 2 points. Otherwise, the team that wins outright is going to cover. Of course, you could have a push. But, yeah, Jessica, you're right, especially if you bet it early in the week. Jessica says she thinks the Cowboys are going to win, obviously, a very close game, and that line did drop because of Manning starting. But, yeah, that is the clear example of inductive reasoning versus deductive reasoning. And occasionally I'm asked, look, does your college education, how does that help you in handicapping? There's quite a few areas, but one of them was learning the difference between inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, because I'm amazed at how many people are oblivious to that when it comes to sports handicapping and lead indicators versus lag indicators and stuff like that. But yeah, Jessica, you could be right, and I'm even going to confess I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, so I definitely hope the Cowboys win outright. But you do not pick with your heart. The Cowboys, I do think, are a little bit overrated. But speaking of the Cowboys and the Giants, let's talk about that game. Cowboys linebacker Sean Lee is fully healthy. No secret, look, he is one of the most important defensive players in the league, and that's why it's look, Sean Lee, he's one of the few defensive players who can affect the line. The old abducted by aliens. Cowboys are 18-4 straight up, 15-7 against the spread with him in the lineup, which makes Jessica's theory highly plausible, where the Giants could cover this game but not win outright. Now, this did open up as the Cowboys a 6-point favorite the last I saw at SBR odds, and again, we can check those SBR odds. Yep, looks like it is still 3.5. So they are still a 3.5-point favorite, but they opened up at 6. The Giants, of course, did fire Ben McAdoo, their head coach. And as we said, and this is one of the reasons why I do say the Giants could be a pretty good to Jeff DeAngelis. Yeah, I know, I pay more attention to the females. That's what you do when you're 100 years old. But to Jeff DeAngelis, that's why I think the Giants might be a pretty good outside the box, because I've said it's a general rule of thumb, not necessarily etched in stone, but teams do seem to get a bounce when they replace a coach in the middle of the year. And in football, that can happen with replacing an offensive or defensive coordinator, and I take a look at that when it comes to totals. Raiders and the Chiefs. The Raiders as a now did I give my official free pick? By the way, Detroit in the NFL is my official free pick. If I did not mention that, Detroit in the NFL is my official free pick from offshoreinsiders.com. The Raiders versus the Chiefs, going with a team in a nice stretch of not turning the ball over, is 167 and 115. That favors Kansas City. Still have one more free pick coming up, by the way. Yet the worst turnover team is 569 and 434, and that would favor the Raiders, when a team is substantially worse, that is. Now, we do like to say uncertainty is good. There has not been not even Phillip Rivers has been as streaky as the Chiefs this year. Well, we're pretty damn close. And we do say that we like to bet on uncertainty. But when we have uncertainty, what we like to do is when a team is a pretty big favorite, taking into account that home field advantage is worth 3 points. Well, this was a 3.5 point spread, and let's double check that at SBR odds. Still believe the live line. Well, there it is. Yeah, it's a 4 point spread, but still not quite enough where it's enough of a big enough underdog for us to really bet on that uncertainty. When you have a team that's a pretty large underdog and taking that 3 point home favorite into consideration, so thus, if you're a 2 point home underdog, that's bigger than being a 4 point road underdog. In other words, that we do like to take pretty big underdogs in games where there have been erratic teams. Sports books, the odds makers, they despise uncertainty. Sharp players, we love it. Not a big enough underdog, though, for that theory to really apply here. Kansas City's dropped 6 of 7, while the Raiders have won 2 straight. Now, in a regression to the mean sport, we would lean towards Kansas City under those circumstances. But as we said, the very modest check mark in that box of chocolates would go to the Raiders. So same record, but home field, by the way, has meant very little to these teams. They have the same straight-up record. Kansas City, though, 3-2 straight up at home. Oakland, 2-3 straight up on the road. So again, not really a big home field advantage here, at least based on year-to-date statistics. Oakland wide receiver Amari Cooper is questionable. Chiefs without their defensive back Marcus Peters, probably their top cornerback. Series has gone under 18-7. Ravens and the Steelers. We'll look at the Sunday Night Football. We'll also have another free pick coming up. We're going to look at the consensus. But remember, join me at offshoreinsiders.com. Another wise guy play. I think the record is 22-7. I am at offshoreinsiders.com. No, 22-8. Sorry about that. Didn't mean that. 10, and that is a bad typo there. Yikes. When you put in a lot of hours, that happens. I think it's 169-109 with all of our football picks. I guess I'm going to have to make sure that's corrected when we get off of here. Great year it's been in football. Just saw that typo here on live TV. Great year, though, at offshoreinsiders.com. Big portfolio. Please join us. And I see we got more people joining us live. Please give us likes, comments, etc. Make sure you watch the on-demand from the beginning. We're going to have a total of 3 free picks on this report if you haven't been watching since the beginning. Sunday Night Football, the Ravens and the Steelers. Steelers have gone under 8-4. The record is in a 4-way tie for the top under team. Steelers open up at -7. They're now -4. Antonio Brown has been, relatively speaking, the Ravens have done a good job holding him in check. Averages 62 yards per game, the Baltimore, in 14 career games. He's obviously even better than that normally. Ravens are 10-2 to the AFC North. We have several sources we use. We don't have any one source that we use for consensus. We have offshore, Vegas, and I got some outlaw stuff. And the biggest consensus play, a rare case where the public is loving, and thank you for the latest one, Jim Savaka, for the latest like, and thank you to everyone who's given us likes throughout this broadcast. And look, if you're on Twitter, share this. I know a lot of people in the industry watch this, please feel free to share it embed it on your website. We understand you can put your own ads in the text around that. We understand there's got to be a little give and take there. That's fine, but I think your readers will love this information. So please feel free to share it, embed it in your website. Seattle, a very rare case where a underdog is Said a rare case of a favorite. Almost always they like favorites. Rare case of an underdog being a consensus play here. And we do have one more free pick for you in college basketball. And it's very high volume. It's based on a lot of advanced metrics, including rebounds, field goal percentage of last game, 1,477 and 1,194. Told you about the work I do with those kids, grade school kids, usually second through fourth graders. I especially work with, and I have them read numbers to me. Maybe I need to practice with them. 1,477 and 1,194 against the spread. That would favor Western Kentucky minus the 1.5 against Ohio. Once again, Western Kentucky. And make sure you follow us at Offshore Insider. There you can see at Offshore Insider on Twitter. With the bowls here, I put in a gazillion hours. We're going to have great free information for you. Of course, I got, some premium information. I do work a full-time job as a sports handicapper, but follow us on Twitter. And make sure you visit us at offshoreinsiders.com. I will talk to you next Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, or anytime after 10 a.m. Eastern Time, on demand. Sportsbook review, but 10 a.m. Eastern Time next Sunday for the tailgate party, tracing its roots to the Score Phone days. Thank you, everybody. Let's make sure I got all your comments. Thanks for the likes. Talk to you next week.